Hey, what's up YouTube? This is BrandoMcWilli, and I'm about to attempt my Red Lion installation of my R6 fore-end and my front sight from Red Lion Precision on my Kel-Tec Sub2000. I'm going to do this in a multiple part series because I'm going to break out the different things as far as removing the front sight, installing the front sight, installing the rail or rail assembly, and installing the rail onto the gun itself. So this is going to be a multiple part series broken up into different parts, just because maybe an individual who's watching the video may only want to see how to remove the front sight. They may not want to see 20-25 minutes of me just doing all of everything at one time. So I want to do this as a brief introduction video to kind of give you an idea of what I'm trying to do, and kind of give you an idea of the parts that are involved, and kind of show you what's needed to do this installation. Now, obviously the first thing that we need when we do an installation is the gun itself, and we want to make sure that the gun is unloaded, and we want to make sure that the gun is clear, etc. Now, I'll do that when I start beginning, and I'll show that on the video, but right now I'm just going to basically set that to the side. I'm going to take my camera and move it over a little bit. And we'll start going through basically an inventory parts list to do this particular project. I guess I can go ahead and do this. It's going to be a multiple part series, so you're not going to, be able to see all that well, me going back and forth to different videos, but I'll do it now. And I'll set this over to the side. Now, I basically have a couple of things that I'm going to be doing. Number one is replacing the front sight with the Red Lion Precision R7 front sight. Now, Red Lion has done an excellent job as far as providing a schematic and a set of tools needed to do this job. And I'm going to go over the parts list that I have and make sure I have the appropriate tools and the appropriate parts that they said that it came with. So, I'll take the camera off the tripod so you can see a little bit better. So, in order to do this particular installation, we have to have a few tools, and the tools that are needed are basically a 5/64th Allen wrench, a 1/8 Allen wrench, a 5/32 Allen wrench, a T15 torque wrench, and a flathead screwdriver. Now, I got a couple of the 5/32s, but I have my Allen wrenches here. Okay, I have a couple of flathead screwdrivers. I'm not sure which size I'm going to need yet, and I have my T15 torque wrench. Okay, as far as the parts list that comes with the forearm, I got a list here with a schematic of the forearm and the instructions on how to do it. And basically what I'm looking for is my end cap, which is what I have here. Okay, I need 632 by 3/8 T15 torque screws, and I have plenty here. And one thing that's nice that Red Lion has done is they have provided me with one extra. Okay, that's a nice feature. I have my curled nut that actually lets me do the indexing. I have that here. I have my coupler and my fore-end adapter, which I'll put here and here. Okay, so I have all the pieces as far as the fore-end is concerned. I do have the actual fore-end here, and that's it that comes with the actual fore-end. Now, I've added a couple of things, as you've seen in the other video when I did the unboxing. I added two 19-slot rails, and I haven't made the decision on where I'm going to put those yet. That's probably going to be my first installation, because I got to put those rails on the actual forearm in order to do the coupling and all that kind of stuff. So that has to be installed first. And the second thing that I'm going to install, obviously, is the front sight post and the muzzle compensator. Okay. Now, just to give you an idea, I do have a set of instructions for the R6, and I have a set of instructions for the R7. The R6 is the forearm, the R7 is the front sight. Okay, and it basically tells us which parts we need, or what tools we need, etc., and basically how to do everything. I'm going to be making a couple of modifications to the instructions, and I'll go through that as I go along, but I basically want to give this a brief introductory video and let you know what we have here. Now, in this particular video, or this particular part, I'm also going to talk about front sight removal of the Sub2000. The Sub2000, in order to install the fore end, okay, the front sight has to be removed. Okay. Now technically this is probably a permanent removal of the front sight. So when you put this fore end on from Red Lion, you have to have that front sight removed. And if you don't want to remove the front sight and you want a different option, then obviously you can order the fore end from Kel-Tec. This one obviously we ordered from Red Lion. So in order to do that, if you look in some of the other videos on YouTube, there's a couple of them where they show the removal of the front sight. And what the guy did was he basically took a Dremel tool here and cut the plastic. And this is plastic right here on the front sight. He cut the plastic off here and slid the plastic front sight off. Now there is a metal bushing underneath this that he basically took a heat gun to, which melted the Loctite and was able to move that metal bushing. Now if I go and look at the instructions, as far as the front sight removal, it says, if not already done so, the factory front sight must be removed for install. I removed mine by cutting it off using a Dremel tool. Then if your adapter requires the metal bushing to be removed, then remove the metal bushing from the barrel. I used a heat gun at 800 degrees and removed and heated for about 4 minutes, at which time the bushing easily slid off and the residue from the Loctite that held the bushing on, and I wiped it clean. Now, I don't have a heat gun, nor do I have a Dremel tool. So this may be quick by me not having the right tools, but I'm going to see if I can't make do with my wife's handy dandy blow dryer. Alright, I have no idea if this will heat this up to the appropriate temperature, but what I'm going to do, or attempt to do, and I'll tell you if this is successful because I don't think there's not a video on this or not, I'm basically going to heat the front sight up using the hair dryer and let it heat for about 4 minutes or so and see if I just can't slide off the front sight with the metal bushing attached to it without having to cut it off. So that's my first step, and so basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the video. I'm going to plug this up, and I'm actually going to just let this hair dryer run for about 4 to 5 minutes. I'm going to hold it in place to make sure that I don't, burn anything or melt anything. See if I can't preserve that front sight, and we'll see how that goes. Alright, so this is basically the start of part 1, and I'll come back to show you the front sight removal here in a second. Hopefully. Okay, I'm back. I've been running the hair dryer on the front sight of the Sub2000 for about 10 minutes, and that is with no luck whatsoever. So that is not working, and one thing in the directions it said that the heat gun was supposed to be around 800 degrees is what he had it set for, and he let it run for 4 minutes, and the front bushing came off very easily. Now a couple things that I noticed trying with the hair dryer method is that yes, the front sight does get very hot, and I used a gloved hand in order to do that, but I just turned it off and it's already cooled back down a lot. So basically the barrel's kind of warm, but this plastic really does protect that front sight and that bushing that's underneath there. So kudos to Kel-Tec, I guess, on that, in that regard, that the front sight is not going to come off with the heating of the barrel when you're shooting. So if you're shooting hundreds of rounds, it's not going to come off. And I basically had like a coffee can full of brass and the hairdryer sitting there and just let it run for a while. So that's not working. I have another option, which I don't know if I'm going to do. I can go borrow a Dremel from somebody, but my other option is I have this bench grinder sitting over here, and the idea is maybe if I could sit here and grind the tool without hitting my barrel. That's the problem. I'm not quite sure if I can do that steadily or not, and I may try it. So the front sight to me is coming off permanently anyway, so I'm not worried about destroying the front sight. I'm worried about just messing up my barrel, but I may try that and see how that works out. Otherwise, excuse me, otherwise I'm going to go borrow my neighbor's Dremel tool and cut the front sight off, and I'll probably try the hair dryer method again for the bushing to see with metal on metal if that makes a difference. So if not, then I'll see if I can't borrow a heat gun. I'm trying to do this without purchasing anything else, but just kind of give you an idea of the things that I've tried. So I'm going to pause this video for now, and then I'll let you know if I get the Dremel and show you how the front sight comes off with the Dremel. Take care. Hey, you can probably hear my grinding wheel winding down. I went ahead and took a gamble and used my bench grinder. It tore that front sight up pretty good, but it worked very well actually to getting that front sight off. Basically, I ground down the back end, and you can see where the grind actually started hitting this particular tool, but I didn't nick my barrel up at all or anything to get that off. Now, since I got this plastic piece off, which was on very good by the way, now I'm going to use the hair dryer to see if I can't remove this metal bushing from the barrel. So I'm going to put it back into where I had it before, using the hair dryer technique, and see if I can't heat it up enough to, remove that bushing. So I'm going to start the hair dryer back up, and then I'll come back to the video to have that front sight removed, hopefully, or that front sight bushing removed. Alright. Okay, I know this is noisy, but I just want to give you an update. I'm still running with the hair dryer. I've been running about 5 minutes, just tried it using those locks there. Still no budging. So I'm going to let it run another 5 minutes and see if this doesn't melt a little bit, and I'll keep you updated. Okay, just a quick update. Hair dryer really not working. I had it going for, wow, about 15 minutes, and it's just not enough heat to break that Loctite. So kudos to Kel-Tec and kudos to Loctite for making good products in the sense that I can't get the daggum thing off. Not a problem though. I may have to see if I can borrow a heat gun or maybe a torch. I don't want to mess up my barrel though. And the hair dryer, the barrel's warm, but it's not hot. I can touch it with a bare hand. It's just not, just didn't melt it like it needed to be melted. So this needs to come off so I can do the 4-in installation. And then I'm not really, I guess I shouldn't worry about the barrel so much because this piece, this is actually a little notch here. This muzzle compensator will actually slide on and replace this bushing, and it will slide up to this little notch that's here that you really can't see right now. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get to. And then of course the front sight will eventually go on over this like so. Okay, so it'll be like this and will look really, really, really cool. But before I can even put the front sight on, I got to put this on. So technically, I could be doing this, all right, and putting the fore-end on, but I'm not going to do that. I want to focus on my videos and get this off first, and go from there. Now, one thing that you have noticed is I have taken off the forearm, the old forearm, and the old forearm is right here. Now, one thing I'm going to do as well is I'm going to weigh the components. Let me adjust my camera a little bit better. Sorry about that. I'm going to weigh the components. I'm going to weigh this versus this. Now that I got the front sight off, that's going to be off a little bit, and take off this bushing. I really want to weigh it, compare it to this, and see if the weight, how the weight comparison is, and weigh all this equipment to this. Now, feeling these side by side, really the plastic piece is a tad bit heavier, but I don't have any rails or the bushing on here yet. So I got a lot of stuff to add, and this all adds weight as well. I think this, with one 19-slot rail, completed assembly, weighs just under a pound. Kel-Tec said that their forearm assembly with 4 quad rails weighs 0.99 or 0.96 or something like that of a pound. So kind of get an idea of the weight that you're adding by adding the quad rail. So anyway, I'm going to pause here and see if I can't find a heat gun or a hotter source to get that off, and then I'll continue. You guys take care. Okay, I'm back, and I'm also back with a heat gun, Wagner, and it has 2 settings on this particular heat gun. It has a high setting and it has a low setting. Now this particular heat gun will go 750 degrees Fahrenheit on the low setting and 1000 degrees Fahrenheit on the high setting. So before I turned the camera on, I was playing with this. I probably had the heat gun on the bushing here for about 2 minutes, and then I tried to turn it with my wrench and it turned easily. So I was going to try to do that on camera for you if I can, since I have the tripod. I went ahead and went to my local Home Depot and made this purchase. I was kind of anxious about getting this done. Plus I was in the middle of my lunch hour, and I wanted to make sure that I could get this done within the allotted time. And my round trip to Home Depot, knowing what I was going to get, took only 20 minutes. So not that bad of a deal. Now this, just to let you guys know, is a lot hotter than the hair dryer. I had no real experience with a heat gun, so I really didn't know. And if I put my hand under here, I mean, I can burn myself really far below the projected heat. You can see I've only had it on there now just for a couple of minutes, or a few seconds. Let me see if I can still turn it. Yeah, so I can turn the bushing. It turns with my pliers. And let's see if I can start to work its way out. Let me open it up a little bit. I don't want to burn my workbench. That would not be good. Now I went ahead and decided to go ahead and purchase this because I got two Sub2000s to do. If you noticed from my other video that DT Win 82 also has a Sub2000 and is putting the same equipment on his firearm. So we're working on it together. Melt this a little bit more. But you can see how easily that was to turn just after a couple of minutes of using the heat gun. So my mistake. Now, one thing that I was going to mention too, if I had tried to use this heat gun with the plastic sight on there, I may have actually melted some of the plastic sight. I don't know if you can see it, but my frays are curling up, and some of the plastic that was left on the bushing was also starting to melt as well. So I don't know if this would have been a good idea to use the heat gun on a high setting to remove it with the front sight, but perhaps maybe on the low setting it may work. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'll leave that up to somebody else to try, or maybe I'll try it on the other Sub2000 that I'm working on. So I'll get this off and I'll come right back. Alright, I just removed that bushing, and look at that smoke. That's how much heat is generated up underneath there. And I have that removed right here. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll let this cool down a little bit, but in the meantime I'm going to take a rag and basically see if I can't wipe some of that clean without burning myself. Kind of get an idea of what the barrel looks like without all that tape or Loctite, whatever that was. That was kind of like a white tape. I'm not sure if that's a... I know there's like two different kinds of Loctite. There's like blue and then there's white or something like that, or maybe it's red. I don't know. I've read there's a couple of different kinds. But I think we have it. Let's take a look off the tripod here. Alright. Very nice, very clean. That's still really hot. Let's see if I'm stupid enough for touching it. Yeah, it's pretty warm. But now, if you notice, there's a little notch there, and that when I go to put on the front sight, as far as the muzzle brake, it stops at that notch. Alright, so that's the idea of what we're going for there. Move that back onto the thing. So it will look very cool once it's complete. So now, I basically have the old handguard off, and I'm going to start installing the new handguard, and I'm going to weigh the old one and the new one in the second part. So thank you for bearing with me through this trial and error on removing the front sight. I think it's kind of important to show errors as well as successes, in the sense that, you know, not all of us, I mean, usually what you see on YouTube is all the good things. I want to show you the bad things as well. So hopefully this gave you an insight of some of the issues that I ran up against, and the idea of having the right tool just simply works. So you guys take care and look forward to part 2. And part 2 would be installing the R6 fore end. Take care.